Jimmie Johnson is hell-bent on expanding Legacy Motor Club and has his eyes on a few young driver prospects. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Massive breaking news yesterday with Trackhouse and Daniel Suarez officially parting ways at the end of the 2025 season. We've got some other news stories to catch up on today, plus my power rankings in the second half. I took a few big swings, can't wait to share with y'all. First and foremost, though, this episode is sponsored by Prolube Oil Treatment, the only oil additive you will ever need. Experience a quieter engine, fewer repairs, and better fuel mileage. Prolube quiets engine noises and vibrations, decreases engine wear by 45%, provides an up to 10% boost in horsepower. It extends oil change intervals and can boost your fuel economy. That's why over 80,000 families choose Prolube Oil Treatment. Prolube stands for quality, trust, and hard work. Proudly American family-owned since 1988. Try Prolube Oil's premium line of products today at prolubeoil.com. Link is also down in the description, and you can use a special promo code GROOVE20 for 20% off your entire order. And be sure to follow Prolube on TikTok, where they've posted a ton of different clips testing their various products. Thank you to Prolube Oil for sponsoring Out of the Groove. Jimmie Johnson is now the majority owner of Legacy Motor Club, a team that finally, at long last, is beginning to show some fire. Eric Jones, despite an early season points penalty, is 16th in the regular season standings, and John Hunter Nemechek just scored back-to-back top 10 finishes. While the recent uptick in performance is very exciting, Legacy owners continue to have one eye on the future. Earlier this season, Legacy Motor Club evidently believed they had a deal done with Rick Ware Racing to acquire one of Rick Ware's charters for the 2026 season. Rick Ware Racing disagreed. Now there are lawsuits flying back and forth. And last week, Rick Ware Racing actually sold both of his charters to TJ Pusher, a new owner. So Legacy Motor Club's immediate expansion plans seem to have hit a bit of a snag. On a recent podcast episode of Never Settle, that's Jimmie Johnson's show he co-hosts with Marty Smith, Jimmie expressed confidence that Legacy Motor Club would still be able to get a deal done for a third charter sooner rather than later. Here's what he said.
It's been a process, unfortunately, but I think we'll have some form of outcome here soon. You know, it's our intentions and ambitions to put a third car on the grid in 26. I'd say worst case scenario would be 27, but we're working hard to make 26 happen.
3 charters seems to be the sweet spot. Under the new charter agreement, 3 is the max you are allowed to own unless your name is Joe Gibbs or Rick Hendrick, who each have 4 charters apiece and were grandfathered into this deal. But 3 charters seems to be the perfect balance in the next-gen era. Strength in numbers, ability to share data back and forth while not spreading your organization too thin. Plus, it could be attractive to a new manufacturer. I know I keep throwing this theory out there, but Trackhouse, for example, obviously made a big deal yesterday, will never be the top Chevy team. They recently acquired a third charter. They could be a great candidate to join Stellantis, Dodge, or even Honda if they choose to enter the sport in the coming years. RFK Racing, I know Jack Roush's name is still on the building, but they've recently become a 3-car team. They're trying to nail down that third charter. They will never be the top Ford team. Penske is. RFK could be a candidate to switch OEMs in the coming years. Brad Keselowski's taken on a much larger leadership role there. And I would throw Legacy into the mix. Legacy Motor Club will never be the top Toyota team. So maybe a manufacturer swap in the coming years makes sense. Having 3 charters, proving that you have the infrastructure to embrace a new manufacturer is extremely important. That's why I think all these teams, from Trackhouse to Spire to now Legacy, that's why they've either expanded to 3 or are actively trying to get to 3, because 3 charters is the sweet spot from a competitive standpoint, from a business standpoint, potentially from a new OEM standpoint. So Jimmie Johnson, bullish, but we'll see how this ongoing legal dispute with Rick Ware / TJ Pusher Racing evolves. Also in this podcast episode, and I briefly mentioned this in yesterday's video, Jimmie was asked by a fan about the top young prospects coming up through the NASCAR ranks. Jimmie name dropped a few interesting characters, including Harrison Burton, Martin, Todd Gilliland, Corey LaJoie. He also talked up Toyota's broad development system in the lower ranks, but then he zeroed in on 2 top Xfinity youngsters.
Who is the best prospect coming up through the ranks?
When you look through the Xfinity series, Connor Zilich, Jesse Love.
Obviously, with the news yesterday that Daniel Suarez won't return to Trackhouse, Connor Zilich seems primed to take that third Trackhouse Cup seat. But Jimmie mentioned Jesse Love. That is the second time in the past month that Jesse Love has been linked in some way, shape, or form to Legacy Motor Club. Back in June, Bob Pockris, Fox Sports, wrote that Jesse Love could be a dark horse candidate for a third Legacy seat should Legacy acquire a third charter. So Bob mentioned Jesse by name, and now Jimmie has mentioned Jesse by name, among others. It's not like he zeroed in and said, we really like that Jesse Love kid. He just kind of threw his name out there. And I get it. Jesse Love, 20 years old, very young. 2 years ago, he was a Toyota driver, winning the ARCA Menard Series Championship in a Venturini Toyota, won half the races that season. So it wasn't long ago Jesse Love was in the TRD pipeline. I'm sure they would welcome him back, especially considering Love has improved year 1 to year 2 in Xfinity with RCR. I know he's still yet to win a non-super speedway race since his Rockingham victory got DQ'd, but you look at the numbers, you look at where he's at in points, Jesse Love has clearly taken a step forward this season. I think a win on a conventional track is coming sooner rather than later. I'm not sure he's Cup Series ready right now. And I do realize that makes me sound like a hypocrite because last week, even yesterday, I was talking up Connor Zilich, 19 years old, saying he is Cup ready at least to get that experience. The difference between Zilich and Love, I would say, is that Zilich has a specialty. Like I said yesterday, you drop Connor Zilich into a Cup car today, he'd be the 5th or 6th best road racer in the series. The ovals would be a struggle for sure, but at least at road courses, he'd give you a shot right out the gate. Jesse Love right now, I think, would struggle just about everywhere. He's young, he's relatively inexperienced, it would be a process. Long term, I think Jesse Love has a very high ceiling. You probably could put him in a Cup car next year and he'd run kind of like Riley Herbst is running right now. He would at least be getting experience with the next-gen car, which everyone agrees drives radically different than the Xfinity Series platform. So maybe Jesse Love could hold his own in Cup next season, but if I was an owner, I'd like to see Jesse cook in the lower series a bit longer. I'd like to see him win a non-super speedway race before I promote him to Cup. That's just me. But anyway, Jimmie Johnson mentioned Jesse Love. That's the second time in the past few weeks Jesse Love and Legacy have been somewhat linked. I'm going to throw out one more name in relation to the Trackhouse news yesterday. What about Daniel Suarez? Brings sponsorship. Obviously, he's a veteran, has experience, used to race for Toyota, won an Xfinity Series championship driving a Toyota 9 years ago. I'm not sure Suarez is a long-term anchor driver at this point in his career, but he brings sponsorship, likable guy in the garage, very marketable. Maybe that's who you put in that third Legacy car for a year, maybe 2, before a Jesse Love or another prospect is ready to make the jump finally. Just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it's a no-brainer. And again, as of right now, Legacy does not have a third charter. They got to figure out what's going on with Rick Ware. They got a lot they have to figure out before they can start talking to drivers about deals for next season. But if Jimmie's plan comes to fruition and Legacy has a third charter for next season, I would at least consider Daniel Suarez on a short-term deal. Would Daniel take that deal? Would he rather take his sponsorship and go chase a championship in the Xfinity Series again, win races? Maybe Suarez would prefer that route. But if Suarez wants to stay in Cup, I feel like a hypothetical third Legacy Motor Club seat is his only remotely competitive option. And we don't even know if it is an option. Like I said, it's hypothetical right now because it doesn't actually exist. Anyway, Jimmie Johnson, some very interesting comments on Never Settle recently. I was going to react to them yesterday, but then with the Daniel Suarez breaking news, that took priority. So we're reacting to him now today. And actually, it's probably better to time it out this way because now we can talk about the Daniel Suarez ramifications. Anyway, leave a comment down below. Do you think Legacy will get a third charter? And if they do, who would you put in that seat for next season and beyond? Let me know now. It is time for my weekly power rankings. Better late than never. I usually do these Monday, sometimes Tuesday. had to push him to Wednesday this week. Midweek power rankings, and this week is tough because we're coming off Atlanta, where a huge crash took out most of the contenders. And looking ahead, as we always do, the next two races are road courses. Radically different tracks, which means we may see some radically different drivers towards the top of my list this week. Let's not waste any more time. Power rankings post Atlanta. Quick honorable mentions: Shane Van Gisbergen, AJ Allmendinger, and Michael McDowell. Their all-around performance is nowhere close to top 10 worthy, but we do have road courses coming up. They will be contenders, should all run top 5, probably win at least one of these next two races. So watch for SVG, AJ, and Double M to be pretty good these next couple weeks. But now let's get to my top 10. At number 10, welcome back Tyler Reddick. Hang the banner, got his first stage win of the year Saturday night, finished 4th. Despite having no teammate support up front towards the end. Tyler Reddick has been frustrating because he's had pretty good speed most weeks the past couple months, but they've been unable to put full races together. Pocono looked promising, then the entire team's brakes exploded. Good run at Atlanta. He's been one of, if not the best road course racers in the next gen era. I look for Reddick to be fast the next 2 weeks. Tyler Reddick at 10. At number 9, Ty Gibbs. Hear me out. Ty Gibbs has a 10th place average finish the past 4 weeks. And he got fenced at the end of the Atlanta race by Ty Dillon, or else he probably would have finished top 5 or at least top 10 there. He led 32 laps. And a couple weeks ago at Mexico City, a road course, he led 27 laps. He's added Chris Gabehart to the pit box to call strategy the next few weeks. Chris Gabehart, one of the best crew chiefs of the past decade. That is an extremely valuable asset to have in your ear on race day. Yeah, Ty Gibbs at 9. Look for him to make some noise the next couple of weeks for sure. I'll keep Chase Briscoe at number 8. He got swept up in the big one at Atlanta, but before that he won Pocono, was top 10 at Mexico City. Not long ago he had back-to-back top 5s at Kansas and Charlotte. This team has definitely improved a little since the start of the year. It feels like Briscoe and crew chief James Small are starting to find their groove. They overcame some late race drama and adversity to win Pocono, so I'll keep Briscoe in the 8 spot for now. At number 7, Ryan Blaney has 6 DNFs in 18 starts this year. Just brutal. I am a big believer that you make your own luck in most cases, but Blaney is testing that theory this year. Blown engines, always caught up in someone else's mess. Same story at Atlanta. Dude cannot catch a break. If Blaney was a better road racer, perhaps I'd keep him in the 5th or 6th spot, but with the next 2 weeks coming up, I'll put Blaney at 7. Plenty of room to improve throughout the summer. At 6, I'll keep Kyle Larson in that spot. Got damaged when he was involved in an early crash at Atlanta, but still finished 17th. Good perseverance. Sure, he dropped 1 spot in the standings to 3rd, but actually took a pretty big bite out of William Byron's overall points lead. Long way to go this summer. Larson's a pretty good road racer. Let's see if he can start turning some of these top 10, top 5 runs recently into winning runs once again. Larson at 6, top 5. There are some new names in here. Get ready, y'all. Denny Hamlin at 5. Seems a little harsh to drop him 4 positions in 1 week, but really that's more about rewarding some of the guys in front of him. Though Hamlin admitted in his podcast this week he did at least play a part in triggering the big crash at the beginning of stage 2. It seems like his car wasn't too great even before that incident. If Denny was a better road course racer, perhaps I would have kept him at 3 or 4, but he's not. The results speak for themselves. So I've got Denny Hamlin in the 5th position this week. He's basically tied with his teammate Christopher Bell, who I have at 4. They're literally tied in the points. Both crashed out at Atlanta. Bell, been a little up and down lately, was not really a factor at Pocono, spun himself out at Atlanta, actually took himself out before the big one. But I'm giving Bell the tiebreaker, I suppose, because he's a much better road racer. Won a race at Coda earlier this year. The results, again, speak for themselves. That's why I have Bell at 4 and Hamlin at 5. And at 3, y'all aren't ready for this, William Byron. That's right, I had the points leader at 3. Another casualty of the big one. He's now finished 27th or worse in 3 of the last 4 races. But I'm not going to bury him for that, because if you look at those races like Michigan, he could have won that race, ran out of gas on the last lap. Strategy kind of screwed him over at Pocono. Just talked about the big wreck that he did not start at Atlanta. So while the recent results have not been good, The 24 arguably still has the most consistent speed week in, week out. Good road racer, Byron at 3. A brand new 1 and 2. We'll start at number 2, Chris Buescher. Maybe I've been huffing too much out of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch candle this week, but man, 9th place at Atlanta, led 15 laps. That's now 4 straight top 10 finishes for Buescher. I saw a graphic this week from Racing Insights, I believe. Chris Buescher has earned more points than anyone the past 5 races. That is a wild stat. We head to back-to-back road courses. Chris Buescher's a great road racer, won Watkins Glen last year, top 10 at Mexico City. Chris Buescher at 2. I think he deserves it this week. I promise it's not just the fumes talking. And at number 1, Chase Elliott. I don't have a Napa Auto Parts candle. What would that even smell like? Like brake dust? Chase Elliott's earned the top spot. Last 3 finishes, 5th, 3rd, 1st. Still has 0 DNFs this year. He's the only driver to finish top 20 in every single race. And he's a good road racer. Top 5s at both COTA and Mexico City this year. He's going to be a contender the next 2 weeks. Chase Elliott, worthy of the top spot. Post Atlanta, home win, huge weekend, huge result. There's my top 10, folks. Let me know what you think. Little different this week. So what happens when you sandwich a chaotic super speedway type race in between some road courses? You get some different names on the board, but let me know what you think down in the comment section below. That's all I've got for today, folks. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR news, rumors, commentary, race reactions, so much more every day, every week, all year. Really appreciate your very generous support. I will see you again real soon. Thanks for watching.